The text came at 2:17 a.m., glowing on the screen of a phone that wasn't mine. Meet me at the pier. Don't tell anyone. My heart stopped, not because of the message, but because I realized I was holding Captain Elena Torres' phone. The Captain Torres, the stoic, untouchable leader of the Coast Guard station in Monterey, California. And if I had her phone, then she had mine with every raw, unfiltered piece of my soul typed into it. My name is Alex Harper, and I'm a 28-year-old marine biologist who spent the last 6 months working alongside the Coast Guard, studying the impact of oil spills on Pacific marine life. I'm good at my job, damn good, but I'm a mess when it comes to keeping my personal life under wraps. My phone is a diary of my deepest thoughts, including ones I've never dared say aloud. My feelings for women, my fears of being outed in this small coastal town, and most dangerously, my growing fascination with the enigmatic Captain Elena Torres. Last night, during a chaotic joint operation to rescue a stranded fishing vessel, I must have grabbed her phone by mistake and she mine. Now my secrets are in her hands, and I'm clutching hers, wondering what kind of woman sends cryptic texts in the dead of night. I stood in my cramped apartment, the phone screen casting a pale glow across my face. The weight of the situation hit me like a rogue wave. Elena wasn't just my boss's boss, she was a legend. At 34, she'd climbed the ranks of the Coast Guard with a reputation for being unshakable, her dark eyes always scanning, always assessing. But that text, it hinted at something hidden, something human beneath her ironclad exterior. I should have called her, demanded we swap back, but curiosity burned hotter than caution. Who was she meeting? And why the secrecy? I pulled on my leather jacket and headed to the pier, the Monterey fog curling around me like a conspirator. The ocean roared softly in the distance, and the air smelled of salt and diesel. When I reached the pier, I saw her, Elena, standing under a flickering streetlight, her navy uniform blending into the shadows. Her braid was loose, strands of black hair catching the wind, and her posture was tense, like she was waiting for a fight. She turned and our eyes locked. For a moment I forgot how to breathe. "Harper," she said, her voice low and steady, but there was an edge to it, like she was holding back a storm. "You have my phone. And you have mine." I shot back, my heart hammering. I held up her sleek, government-issued phone, its black case scuffed from years of use. She reached into her pocket and produced mine, its cracked screen and rainbow sticker glaringly out of place in her calloused hand. "We need to talk," she said, stepping closer. The space between us felt charged, like the air before a lightning strike. But not here. We ended up at a diner 2 miles from the station, the kind of place where the coffee tastes like regret, and the jukebox plays songs from a decade ago. We slid into a booth, the vinyl creaking under us, and placed our phones on the table like they were loaded weapons. Neither of us reached for them. Instead, we sat in silence, the weight of our swapped secrets hanging between us. I broke first. "I saw the text," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "The one about the pier. I didn't mean to, but who were you meeting?" Elena's jaw tightened, and for a moment I thought she'd shut me down. But then her eyes softened just a fraction and she leaned forward. "It's not what you think," she said. "But you've got your own secrets, don't you, Alex?" I didn't mean to look either. "But your Notes app isn't exactly locked." My stomach dropped. My Notes app was a confessional, rambling thoughts about my identity, my fears, my stupid, hopeless crush on her. I felt exposed, like she'd peeled back my skin and seen every fragile thing inside. "You read them?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Enough," she said, not unkindly. "Enough to know you're scared. And that you're like me." The words hit like a punch. Like me. Was she saying what I thought she was? I searched her face, but she was a master at hiding, her expression a fortress. Yet there was something in her eyes, a flicker of vulnerability, like a crack in the hull of a ship. Before I could respond, the diner's door swung open, and a man in a dark coat stepped in, his eyes scanning the room. Elena stiffened, her hand brushing the phony as if it were a lifeline. "We need to move," she said, her voice urgent. "Now." We slipped out the back door, the alley behind the diner reeking of garbage and sea air. Elena moved like she was trained for this, her steps quick and silent, while I stumbled to keep up. "Who was that?" I hissed, my heart racing. "Someone I don't want knowing I'm here," she said, her voice clipped. And if they find out what's on my phone, we're both in trouble. What's on your phone? I asked, clutching it tighter. Elena, what's going on? She stopped abruptly, turning to face me. The alley was dark, but the moonlight caught the sharp angles of her face, making her look both fierce and fragile. I can't tell you everything, she said. Not yet. But I need you to trust me, Alex. Can you do that? I wanted to say no, to demand answers, but the way she said my name soft, almost pleading, gunded me. I nodded and she exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. We kept moving, weaving through Monterey's quiet streets until we reached a small, nondescript motel. Elena unlocked a room with a key she pulled from her pocket, and we stepped inside. The space was sparsely bed, a desk, a single lamp casting a dim glow. She locked the door behind us and turned to me, her eyes searching mine. I didn't ask for this, she said, her voice raw. But I saw your notes, Alex. I know what it's like to hide who you are. To feel like the world will break you if they find out. My throat tightened. She nodded just once. I've been hiding it my whole career. The Coast Guard isn't exactly welcoming to people like us. But there's more. Something bigger. And if we don't figure this out, it's not just our secrets at risk, it's our lives. I looked down at her phone, its screen still glowing with that cryptic text. Whatever Elena was involved in, it was dangerous. And now, because of a stupid mix-up, I was involved too. The motel room felt like a pressure cooker, the air thick with tension and unspoken truths. Elena sat on the edge of the bed, her hands clasped tightly, while I paced the worn carpet, her phone burning a hole in my pocket. The words she'd said, people like you, code in my mind, tethering me to her in a way I hadn't expected. But the danger she hinted at loomed larger, a shadow I couldn't shake. Start talking, I said, stopping to face her. If we're in this together, I need to know what's going on. What's on your phone that's worth all this? Elena's eyes flicked to the phone in my hand, then back to me. It's not just about the phone, she said. It's about what's on it. Evidence. Messages. Things that could ruin people in power. I frowned, my mind racing. What kind of evidence? She hesitated, then stood, crossing the room to stand closer to me. Too close. Her presence was overwhelming, her scent, like cedar and salt, her intensity like a storm about to break. I've been working on something off the books, she said. An investigation into illegal dumping off the coast. Oil companies, politicians, even some people in the Coast Guard, theory all involved. I've been gathering proof and it's all on that phone. If the wrong people get it, they'll bury me. And now you, because you're holding it. My knees felt weak. I sank onto the bed, clutching her phone like it was a ticking bomb. Why didn't you tell anyone? Why do this alone? Because I don't trust anyone, she said, her voice sharp but tinged with pain. Not after what I've seen. People turn when money's involved. Or power. I couldn't risk it. I thought of my own phone now in her possession. My notes weren't criminal, but they were personal, too personal. Coming out as a lesbian in a place like Monterey, where everyone knows everyone, felt like walking into a lion's den. And my feelings for Elena, scrawled in late-night confessions, were a vulnerability I hadn't meant to share. You read my notes, I said quietly. You know I'm scared of being out. Of losing my job, my friends. Did you mean it when you said you're like me? Her expression softened, and for the first time I saw the weight she carried. Yes, she said. I've known since I was a teenager, but I buried it. The Coast Guard isn't kind to women like us. I've spent years pretending, keeping everyone at arm's length. But your words, Alex. They reminded me what it's like to want something real. My heart stuttered. I wanted to reach for her to bridge the gap between us, but fear held me back. Instead, I asked, what do we do now? We need to get the phones back to their rightful owners without anyone else seeing what's on them, she said. But first we need to make sure we're safe. That man at the diner, he's one of them. A fixer for the people I'm investigating. If he finds us, we're done. We spent the next hour strategizing. Elena explained that the texts on her phone were from a whistleblower, someone inside the oil company who'd been feeding her information. The peer meeting was supposed to be a handoff, a USB drive with documents proving the dumping. But now, with our phones swapped, we couldn't risk contacting the whistleblower without exposing ourselves. We need to lay low until morning, Elena said. Then we'll head to a safe house I've got set up outside town. From there, we can figure out how to secure the evidence. I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere, tangled in the revelation that Elena was like me. I'd spent months watching her from a distance, admiring her strength, her quiet authority. Now, knowing she shared my secret, I felt a pull toward her, dangerous and undeniable. As dawn broke, we left the motel, moving cautiously through the foggy streets. Elena drove, her hand steady on the wheel of an unmarked sedan she'd stashed nearby. I sat in the passenger seat, her phone still in my pocket, my thoughts a jumble of fear and something else, something warmer. The safe house was a small cabin nestled in the hills above Monterey, surrounded by pine trees and silence. Inside it was sparse but functional. A cot, a table, a laptop with no internet connection. Elena locked the door and checked the windows, her movements precise, like she'd done this 100 times. "We're safe here," she said, finally relaxing a fraction. "For now." I set her phone on the table, and she placed mine beside it. We still hadn't swapped back, as if holding on to each other's secrets kept us tethered. "What happens when we give these back?" I asked. "What happens to us?" She looked at me, her dark eyes unreadable. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I know I'm tired of hiding. Aren't you?" The question hung in the air, heavy with possibility. I nodded, my throat tight. "Yeah, I am." The cabin's silence was deafening, broken only by the distant chirp of crickets outside. Elena and I sat across from each other at the rickety table, our phones lying between us like a line we were afraid to cross. Her confession that she was tired of hiding echoed in my chest, stirring something I'd buried deep, hope. But hope was a dangerous thing when we were on the run. The fixer from the diner was still out there, and Elena's phone held evidence that could bring down powerful people. My own phone, with its raw confessions, felt just as volatile. I wanted to trust her, to believe we could navigate this together. But the stakes were climbing higher by the minute. "We need a plan," I said, breaking the silence. "If that guy's looking for us, he's not going to stop. And if he's connected to the people you're investigating, they'll know about the phone swap by now." Elena nodded, her fingers tracing the edge of the table. "You're right. We need to get the evidence to someone I trust, a contact at the EPA. But we can't just walk into their office. We need to be smart about this." She pulled out a burner phone from a locked drawer, her movements deliberate. "This is clean," she said. "No trace. I'll set up a meeting with my contact, but we'll need to move fast. And we need to make sure our phones don't fall into the wrong hands." I glanced at my phone, its rainbow sticker glaringly bright in the dim cabin. "What about my stuff? If they get my phone, it's not just embarrassing, it could ruin me. This town, it's not exactly progressive." Elena's expression softened. "I know. I've lived that fear my whole life. But we're not going to let that happen. We protect each other now." Her words sent a shiver through me. Not from fear, but from something deeper. I wanted to believe her, to lean into the connection sparking between us, but the danger was too real. "Okay," I said. "What's the next step?" We spent the morning hashing out a plan. Elena would contact her EPA friend, arranging a drop-off for the evidence. I'd help her sort through the files on her phone, making encrypted copies to ensure nothing was lost. It was tedious work, but it kept my mind off the growing pull I felt toward her. As we worked, I caught glimpses of the woman behind the captain's mask. Elena laughed on a low, unguarded sound when I fumbled a password. She told me about growing up in San Diego, about joining the Coast Guard to escape a family that didn't understand her. I shared pieces of my own story. My love for the ocean, my fear of being seen, the way I'd always felt like I was living half a life. By afternoon, we were exhausted but closer, our barriers crumbling. Then her burner phone buzzed, shattering the moment. She read the message, her face hardening. "It's my contact. They want to meet tonight, at an old warehouse in Seaside. But something feels off." "Off how?" I asked, my stomach twisting. "They're pushing for a public spot, but it's too exposed. If the fixer's tracking us, it's a perfect place to corner us." I swallowed hard. "So what do we do?" "We go," she said, her voice steady. "But we're prepared. I've got a gun in the safe and I'll teach you how to use it just in case." The thought of holding a gun made my hands shake, but I nodded. Elena spent the next hour showing me the basics, her hand steadying mine as she adjusted my grip. Her touch was warm, grounding, and for a moment, I forgot the danger we were in. The warehouse loomed like a ghost in the fog, its rusted walls barely visible under the streetlights. We parked a block away, Elena's sedan blending into the shadows. She handed me a small pistol, her eyes locked on mine. "Only if you have to," she said. "Stay close." We moved silently, the weight of our phones and our secrets pressing against us. The warehouse door creaked as we slipped inside, the air thick with dust and the faint smell of oil. Elena's contact was supposed to be waiting, but the place was empty. Then a shadow moved in the corner, and my heart stopped. The fixer stepped into the light, his dark coat stark against the grimy walls. "Captain Torres," he said, his voice smooth and cold. "You've been busy." Elena pushed me behind her, her hand on her gun. "You don't want to do this," she said. "Walk away." He smirked, pulling out a phony phone. "I think you'll want to hear me out. Especially since I've seen what's on this." My blood ran cold. He'd read my notes, my secrets, my feelings for Elena, and now he was using them as leverage. The fixer's smirk was a blade, cutting through the tense air of the warehouse. My phone dangled in his hand, its cracked screen glinting under the flickering lights. Every word I'd written, every fear, every longing was now a weapon in his grasp. Elena stood in front of me, her body a shield, but I could feel her tension, like a coiled spring ready to snap. "Give it back," I said, my voice shaking but defiant. "That's mine." He raised an eyebrow, amused. "Yours, huh? Funny, because what's on it makes you a liability. Both of you." He glanced at Elena, his eyes narrowing. "You've been digging where you shouldn't, Captain. And now you've dragged her into it." Elena's hand tightened on her gun, but she didn't raise it. "You're out of your depth, Marcus," she said, her voice like steel. "You think you can scare us? I've got enough on that phone to bury your bosses." Hand hers over and we walk away. Marcus laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "You think this is about negotiation? I've already sent copies of her little love notes to my people. And your evidence? It's only a matter of time before we wipe it clean." My heart sank. My notes, me confessions about being a lesbian, about Elena, were out there, in the hands of someone who could ruin me. But worse was the thought of Elena's evidence disappearing, her fight against corruption erased. I stepped forward, ignoring Elena's warning glance. "You don't get to control us," I said, my voice steadier now. "You want to expose me? Go ahead. I'm done hiding." Elena's eyes flicked to me, a mix of surprise and something softer, pride maybe. Marcus faltered just for a second, and that was enough. Elena lunged, knocking the phone from his hand. It skittered across the concrete, and I dove for it, my fingers closing around the familiar cracked case. But Marcus was fast. He grabbed me, yanking me back, his arm like a vice around my throat. "Not so fast," he hissed. Elena spun, her gun raised, but he used me as a shield. "Drop it, Captain, or she's done." Elena's jaw clenched, her eyes locked on mine. "Let her go," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "This is between you and me." Marcus tightened his grip and I gasped, clawing at his arm. "You've got 10 seconds to hand over your phone," he said, "or I make sure her secrets are front-page news." I saw the conflict in Elena's eyes, her duty to her mission, her need to protect me. Then slowly, she lowered her gun and pulled her phone from her pocket. "Take it," she said. "But you're making a mistake." He smirked, reaching for it, but I wasn't done. I drove my elbow into his ribs hard, and he grunted, loosening his grip. I broke free, stumbling toward Elena. She caught me, pulling me behind her as Marcus recovered, his face twisting with rage. We ran, the warehouse's maze of crates and shadows swallowing us. Elena's hand gripped mine, her touch grounding me as we dodged through the darkness. We burst out a side door into the foggy night, the sound of Marcus' footsteps fading behind us. We didn't stop until we reached the sedan, panting and shaking. Elena checked me over, her hands gentle but urgent. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice raw. I nodded, clutching my phone. "He didn't get yours," I said. "We still have the evidence." Her relief was palpable, but her eyes were haunted. "He saw your notes, Alex." "I'm sorry. I should have protected you better." I shook my head, my chest tight. It's not your fault. I meant what I said back there. I'm done hiding. If he leaks my notes, I'll deal with it. But I'm not ashamed anymore. Elena's gaze softened, and for a moment the world fell away. She reached out, her fingers brushing my cheek, and my breath caught. You're braver than you know, she said softly. The moment was shattered by the screech of tires. Headlights cut through the fog, and Elena grabbed my arm, pulling me into the car. We need to move, she said, starting the engine. We drove to a new safe house, this one deeper in the hills, a cabin so hidden it felt like we'd vanished from the world. Inside, we collapsed onto a couch, the adrenaline finally fading. Elena opened her phone, checking the files. They're still here, she said, exhaling. We're not done yet. I looked at her, the woman who'd risked everything to protect me, to fight for what was right. Elena, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. What happens when this is over? When we're not running anymore? She turned to me, her dark eyes searching mine. I don't know, she said. But I know I want to find out. With you. My heart leapt, and before I could overthink it, I leaned in, closing the distance between us. Her lips met mine, soft and certain, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. The kiss lingered, a fragile promise in the chaos of our lives. Elena's hand rested on my cheek, her thumb tracing a soft arc, and for a moment, the world outside the cabin didn't exist. No fixers, no corruption, no secrets threatening to unravel us. But reality was a relentless tide, and we couldn't stay hidden forever. We pulled apart, breathless, our foreheads touching. We need to finish this, Elena said, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes. For us. For everyone they've hurt. I nodded, my resolve hardening. Let's do it. The plan was risky but simple. Deliver the evidence to Elena's EPA contact, a woman named Rachel who'd been fighting corporate corruption for years. We'd meet her at a secluded beach north of Monterey, away from prying eyes. Elena encrypted the files, sending a secure copy to Rachel as a backup, but the original stayed on her phone. If anything goes wrong, she said, Rachel will know what to do. We drove through the pre-dawn fog, the ocean a dark expanse beside us. My phone, now back in my hands, felt like a lifeline and a liability. Marcus had seen my notes, and the thought of them being exposed still twisted my gut. But Elena's strength anchored me. She'd risked everything for this fight, and now for me. I wasn't going to let her down. The beach was deserted when we arrived, the waves crashing softly against the shore. Rachel was waiting, a tall woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She took Elena's phone, her expression grim as she scrolled through the files. This is enough to start an investigation, she said. But they'll come for you, Elena. You know that. I'm ready, Elena said, her voice unwavering. Rachel glanced at me, her gaze softening. And you? You're in deep now. I'm not going anywhere, I said, surprising myself with my conviction. Rachel nodded, slipping the phone into a secure case. I'll take it from here. Stay low until I give you the all clear. As she drove away, Elena and I stood on the beach, the wind tugging at our clothes. The sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. But it didn't last. A black SUV roared onto the beach, kicking up sand. Marcus stepped out, flanked by two men, their faces hard and unreadable. You really thought you could outrun me? He called, his voice carrying over the wind. Elena stepped in front of me, her hand on her gun. It's over, Marcus. The evidence is gone. You can't stop this. He laughed, pulling out a tablet. Maybe not. But I can still ruin her. He tapped the screen, and my voice filled the air, recordings of my notes, my confessions, my feelings for Elena. My face burned, but I stood tall, refusing to let him see my fear. Expose me, I said, my voice steady. I'm not ashamed of who I am. Not anymore. Marcus' smirk faltered, but before he could respond, sirens wailed in the distance. Rachel hadn't left, called in reinforcements. The SUV's tires spun as Marcus and his men scrambled to flee, but Coast Guard vehicles blocked their path. Elena's colleagues, people she'd trusted, poured onto the beach, cuffing Marcus and his goons. As the chaos unfolded, Elena turned to me, her eyes fierce and bright. You okay? I nodded, tears prickling my eyes. Better than okay. Weeks later, the investigation was in full swing. Elena's evidence had sparked a federal probe, and the oil company's executives were facing charges. Marcus was behind bars, his threats empty. My notes never went public, but I'd meant what I said he was done hiding. I came out to my colleagues, my friends, and while some turned away, others embraced me. It wasn't easy, but it was freeing. Elena and I stood on the same cliff from the image prompt, the Pacific stretching endlessly before us. She'd taken leave from the Coast Guard, her reputation intact but her future uncertain. I'd finished my research project, but I wasn't ready to leave Monterey or her. What now? I asked, my hand finding hers. She smiled, a real smile, unguarded and warm. We figure it out. Together. As the sun dipped below the horizon, we stood there, no longer hiding, our secrets safe with each other. The world wasn't perfect, but for the first time it felt like ours.